All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is November 1st. We got a jam-packed NBA slate to jump into in today's video. Like we always do, we're gonna go through each and every one of these games. I'm gonna give you my lean on the spread as well as my lean on the total, but all of my final plays, what I'm actually rolling with myself. If you do want to fade me, and we've been pretty fadeable, if you do want to fade me, those plays will be in the pinned comment. Last night, a lot of red X's here. It's not as bad as it looks. All the Cavs and Knicks games are half unit plays, so essentially, those X's are cut in half when it comes to record-wise, but we essentially go 2 and 3, which is a little crazy when you think about it, because that's Suns minus 5.5 with like a couple minutes left in the game. They're up by nearly double digits and they end up losing the game by 1. So an all-time collapse there. But we did hit the plus money hit of them under in the first quarter. And then the Magic Clippers same game parlay, that one came through as well. But like I said, nothing to write home, but essentially a 2 and 3 night, marking 3 negative days in a row. And hold that thought on the womp womp, because a ride of the day also does not come through from none ya business here. Had Kevin Durant over 1.5 3-pointers made. He only finishes with 1. He didn't really even attempt all that many. I like this spot, but it just didn't come through. And you'd think that he'd be shooting a little bit more without Booker or Beal in the lineup, but nonetheless, that one does not come through from none ya business. If you guys do want to be the ride of the day, all you got to use is hashtag ride of the day, just like none ya business did here. Give me an absolute banger of a play in the comments. We got to get on the winning train with the ride of the days here, but I'll be picking one person's play in the comments, jumping on board, and then you guys get a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Hopefully we're talking about a win in tomorrow's video, because we'll talk about it. But if you go out there and drop an L, then we got to face the womp womp, just like none of your business here did. But nonetheless, guys, let's go ahead and bounce back in today's video. Before we go ahead and do that, I want to talk to you about Sleeper. They do have a promo square on sale, but if you're not on Sleeper yet, you're just absolutely missing out. They're dropping promo squares all the time. You can use the link in the pinned comment. You get 100% of your first deposit matched, and Sleeper's very unique in the sense that all of their payouts are dynamic based on the players' multipliers. Usually, the prize picks and underdogs of the world have fixed payout structures. Not Sleeper. Each and every payout structure, payouts for your slip, is dynamic. So make sure to go ahead and check out Sleeper. Again, that link is in the pinned comment, and you get this free Anthony Davis promo square as a new user. All right, game number 1 here. We have the Detroit Pistons taking on the Portland Trailblazers. On the season, Pistons have looked pretty good against the spread. They're 2-2 overall, but 3-1 against the spread. Portland just got their first win against Toronto a couple nights back. I do think I'm going to lean towards Detroit in this one. I don't know about the minus 3.5. I might consider them on the money line. It's a decent amount of juice, though, minus 150. So if we do roll with this one, we'd be paying a lot of juice, but I just like them at home here. I think they are the better team. Jalen Duren is questionable, which is obviously worth monitoring. I don't think that I roll with the Pistons if he's hurt. So keep an eye on the pinned comment to see if we do end up rolling with this one. But it's a battle of two poor-ish teams. Though the Pistons have looked okay, I still kind of put them in that bottom tier of teams. And Portland obviously has not looked all that great. DeAndre Ayton finally kind of came through for them in a sense. He's only had a couple good games to start the year in which he's supposed to have a huge role there. But if Duren and Isaiah Stewart are playing, I think he gets kind of minimized. Scoot Henderson doesn't scare me all that much. Really kind of a rough start to the season for him as well. So if Detroit is healthy, I don't necessarily see a game in which they totally compete here. So give me Detroit. In terms of the total, I guess I lean towards the under, but it is such a low under, I'm probably going to end up sticking away from it. But yeah, we've seen Detroit games kind of all over the place to start the year, but for the most part, cashing unders. And then for Portland, yeah, their offense just has not clicked yet. They've scored under 100 points in the last 3 games. They've only played 4 games. So I'll lean towards the under, but it is a low number. Keep an eye on the pinned comment to see if we end up rolling with that. Next up, Toronto is hosting the Bucks in this spot here. Toronto getting 5 points at home. Total sitting at 224. In terms of these two teams head-to-head, last time they played, which was obviously last year, Toronto ends up winning. They won 121 to 105. I think that changes today. I think this Bucks team is obviously very good. That being said, 5 points seems like it's a decent amount. So I'm going to probably end up passing on this game, but I'll lean towards Toronto plus the 5 points. I think the Bucks win, but potentially by a score of like 110 to 106 or something like that. A play that definitely has a chance of being a final play here is going to be the under in this spot, 224. I could totally see this one ending right around, what did I just say, 110 to 106, 116 to sort of 120, which gives a few points of margin there. So I'll lean towards the under as my main lean in this game. Now, again, I think the Bucks win this game, but 5 points seems like it's a little bit too much to give a Toronto Raptors team. 2-2 against the spread this year. They're coming off of, 3 straight losses. I don't think they're going to be that great of a team, but this is a not a rivalry game, but obviously, sort of a conference game that I do think they could kind of get up for more than the Chicagos, the Phillies, or the Portlands here, to be honest. And even that Philly game, they kept somewhat close, right? They did lose against the spread, but they kept it 7 points. So if they can get up for that game, I think they should be able to get up for this Milwaukee game. All right, the rumbling Covern Thunder taking on the Pelicans here. Thunder 3-1 on the season, both straight up and against the spread. The Pelicans only have played 3 games. They're 2-1 against the spread as well as straight up. But I like OKC at home in this spot here. I do think that this is a team that can outrun this Pelicans team. And Brandon Ingram is questionable right now with a knee. He's a toss-up to play. If he doesn't play, then even better, give me OKC minus a 3.5. If he does play, I'll still consider OKC, but obviously it changes things just a little bit. And 225, I like the under. Now, guys, I know that we've been leaning towards a lot of unders, but plenty of unders have been hitting in the NBA. Now, we're kind of probably by the end of this week getting out of that, well, it's a new season vibe and unders are going to hit, but while we can, we might as well lean in that direction and make those final plays. So I still like the under here. This Thunder team has been, scoring, 120. They've already done that twice, 120 plus this season. But the other 2 games, 108 and 95. And it's been against, for the most part, either a good team or a team that keeps it close, right? Chicago and Detroit were the 2 teams that they scored a bunch against. I think the Pelicans are better than those 2 teams. So if this is at all a close game, that usually slows down the Thunder. And I don't hate the under 225.5 in this spot. All right, before we continue on with the slate real quick, I want to shout out Fade Me, the merch brand we have here on the channel. If you guys want to support what we're doing and get some great merch at the same time, make sure to head over to fademe.store. We have tons of new products there, tons of products launching in just a bit as well, like the tie-dye collection that we're launching, which is a very, very cool product here. I could pop up a graphic of it. This is the tie-dye dunk tee and hoodie and crew neck that are launching in a couple weeks' time. But yeah, go check out Fade Me, guys. Again, fademe.store. Great way to support the channel and pick up some great merch. We've been cold for the last couple of days, right? If you're a real one, you're still sticking around watching every single day, consider heading over and picking up some merch and showing your support. I get so excited every time an order comes across. My phone makes a little cha-ching, and it gets me so juiced, makes my day, week, year, whatever you want to call it. Love the brand that we're building here. It takes some balls to rock a shirt on a betting show that says Fade Me, right? Like, you gotta understand that. It's a tongue-in-cheek sort of, hey, you know what? If you want, you could fade me. You might be wrong, or you could be right, but go ahead and do the opposite. No one's forcing you. But nonetheless, guys, go ahead and check it out. Let's continue with the slate here. We're looking at Atlanta taking on Washington. This is a big point spread, 7.5 here, but this Washington team at any given moment can kind of look like a JV basketball team. So I think you got to lean towards Atlanta in this spot. I don't necessarily love laying, 7.5 points. I can admit that, but overall, this is just a Atlanta team that should be a lot better than Washington. Daniel Gafford also questionable here, and the biggest injury of the game is going to be Trae Young is questionable with an Achilles. So them being 7.5 point favorites, it almost tells me that Vegas thinks he's going to play. But if he doesn't play, this is obviously it changes everything up. This is an injury you're going to want to wait out before go ahead and laying some units on this game. But still, assuming Trae Young plays, give me Atlanta minus the 7.5 points. Total sitting at 237.5. Well, this is a tough one because, I've been talking about how unders I like and blah, blah, blah. Not here. This is a Washington team that doesn't play all that great a defense. And though Atlanta has looked good for the last couple games, they haven't been playing the biggest, they haven't had the biggest of defensive presence. So 237.5 is way, way, way up there. but I don't hate the over. Now, I don't think that I have the balls to make it a final play just because it is such a high number, but I'll certainly lean in that direction. I think you'd be silly to look at the under in this game and feel confident about it, but to me, it's probably like save your money and pass on the total. But yeah, keep an eye on the pinned comment for this one because it's going to come down to really Trae Young, whether or not I think this has final play potential or not. Knicks taking on the Cavs. The Cavs, a team that burned me yesterday. I get it. Tough to see that. This is a home and home, so now the Knicks are home. And you know what? Sounding the psycho alert alarm. I'm going to lean towards the Cavs again, which is crazy. They still have a bunch of injuries. Darius, I think it was Donovan Mitchell, said that he's going to play. We have Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, all questionable here. If they even get two of those guys, I think that what we saw last night could be a different story. Now, I'll understand if you guys are in the comments being like, why are you taking the Cavs again? That's absolutely psycho. They got pumped last night, right? They end up losing 109-91. That bet looked okay for 24 minutes. Too bad basketball's not played in a 24-minute game because after the halftime break, the Knicks came out fire and the Cleveland Cavaliers got left behind. But nonetheless, I will take Cleveland here plus a 6.5. If Cleveland keeps this game close, I also like the over to 10.5. We've seen tons of unders cash between these two teams, so I don't necessarily want to ignore that, I guess you could say. But I do think that this is a spot in which Cleveland comes out a little bit more offensively. It was the Donovan Mitchell show last night, and then no one really else to his side, right? If they have Garland, LeVert, Allen, some of these guys come back, I think they should, one, be able to give the Knicks a little bit more trouble, and two, score some more points. So give me the Cleveland Cavs and the over in this one. Celtics taking on the Pacers. Celtics right now, huge favorites, 11.5 points. It's too much for me to lay, but this has same game parlay potential written all over it because if we could get that spread down to maybe 5.5 and get that total down to something like 225, I think we could be in business here for Celtics minus 5.5 or so and the over 225. So we'll try and massage some numbers there and get some good odds, whether it'll be plus money or not for the parlay, not necessarily sure, but keep an eye on the pinned comment there. I do think this has some same game parlay potential. Now, I like I said, I don't necessarily love the idea of the Celtics being this heavily favored, but they've been just such a good team this year. Not necessarily against the spread, but they look really, really good at times. And this is a Pacers team that does not play much defense. That Cleveland team that we just talked about struggling to score against the Knicks scored 125 against Indiana a couple nights back. So if they can do it, I'm sure the Celtics won't have much trouble scoring. And Indiana, as we know, they can play fast. Only one game this year in which they've scored under 125 points. 143 against Washington, 125 against Cleveland, and then Chicago, they end up losing that game, scoring only 105. But that's more or less the outlier in which they've had this year. So I'll take that same game parlay if we can get it to anything close to the numbers that I'm talking about. Miami taking on Brooklyn. Miami laying 6 points here, and I get why. This has been a disappointing Miami team to start the year, right? They win opening night, but even that was 1 point against the Detroit Pistons. And then they lose 3 straight. It hasn't been the easiest of roads. Boston, Minnesota, in Milwaukee. So it's not like they have the easiest of schedules here, right? But they just have not looked good. Brooklyn side of things, they've covered every game they've played in so far, but I want to make it very clear. No Nick Claxton tonight. Cameron Johnson's out. Dennis Smith Jr. is doubtful, and Spencer Dinwiddie is doubtful. So though I do, and I've been saying on the channel, right, that I think this Nets team is going to be a very good against the spread team this year, Dinwiddie is a huge sort of factor for me here. Claxton as well. With those injuries, if those guys don't play, I think I have to lean towards the Miami Heat here, which kind of, it feels like pulling teeth to me because I do not love having to lay 6 points for a Miami Heat team that just has not looked all that spectacular to start the year. You know what I mean? Like, this is a Miami Heat team that, again, hasn't had an easy run of it, but just hasn't looked all that great. Jimmy Butler should play. I know that he was banged up with a knee or something like that, but I believe I've seen on Twitter that he's probable. Bam Adebayo's probable. Duncan Robinson's probable. Josh Richardson's probable. Kevin Love's probable. All of these guys that they have on the injury report, and this is just like last year. Last year, I feel like the Heat's injury report was as long as a Webster's dictionary for the most part, right? And we're already off to an injury report in which 7 guys are listed there. If all those guys play, then I do think that the Heat -6 could be a spot here. If Butler's out or, Bam's out, something like that, it's a stay away game. Total is sitting at 222. I gone back and forth on this one. I've definitely gone back and forth on this one. 222 doesn't seem like it's within reach of these two teams, if I'm being honest. But if you look at what the Nets have been doing offensively this year, 113, 120, 133. It's pretty impressive. But again, I think they lose some of that offense without, I guess you could say, without Spencer Dinwiddie first and foremost, but even Cam Johnson, Dennis Smith Jr., those guys not playing. I do think that it's going to hinder that offense. And Miami's defense, we know, is legit here. They've only let Boston and Milwaukee kind of score on them so far this year. So I'll lean towards the under 222.5. But again, I kind of went back and forth on this because a lot of numbers would say pull the trigger on the over. But I just don't see that happening with sort of the new look Nets that we're dealing with. All right, Houston taking on Charlotte on the season so far here. Houston 0-3. They've yet to cover as well, 0-3 against the spread. Charlotte not all that much better. 1-2 straight up, 1-2 against the spread. This is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, their first away game, so that's interesting to note. We don't necessarily know how they are on the road just yet, but I think they are the better team. If you look at these two starting lineups, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, Mark Williams, like that just has more of I don't want to say youthful, sort of promising vibe to it, but Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith, and then Sengun, like it's kind of putting together a lineup in piecemeal there. Oladipo probably coming back would help this Rockets team, but from now on, or from now until then, I don't think that this is a Rockets team that's really worth backing. And the fact that we're getting points against them, I don't hate whatsoever. So I'll lean towards Charlotte. I think it's got a decent chance of being a final play. The problem is this is kind of a garbage game, right? And you guys know I don't always like betting on garbage games because garbage stinks no matter how you want to, put it together. You could have new garbage, it stinks. You could have old garbage, it stinks. And anything can happen. You know what I mean? A rat could come along and jump in the bag. Like, if it's a garbage game, anything can happen. So it's a little bit risky. But I'll go ahead and lean towards Charlotte in this spot. In terms of the total, we are looking at two teams that have hit the under in 2 of their 3 games this season. Though we have, a very new look team on both sides. Last time they played last year, we did cash an under as well. I think I lean towards the under in this one. I think that if either team kind of gets off to a lead, I don't know how much sort of perseverance the other team will have. Like, again, garbage game, garbage teams. I don't necessarily see this one being a high scoring game. So give me Charlotte here plus the points. I also don't hate Charlotte on the money line. If you want to get a little, risky and dicey in this one, you can get them for plus 115 over on FanDuel. Don't hate that whatsoever. But yeah, I also like the under in this spot as well. I just think that this is a spot in which it could get sloppy. If I had to rank my priority, it'd be, Charlotte, either spread or money line, and then way down here the under, because there's not much defense that's going to be played in this game, which could talk me off of the under. All right, Minnesota taking on Denver here. I like Denver in this spot, even dating back to last year when they're 3-point favorites or less. They've covered that number as in 7 straight games, in 8 of their last 9 as well. This is obviously one of, if not, you want to make the argument, the best team in the league in plenty of people's opinion, right? Winning the championship last year is not that groundbreaking of a take, but when you have the opportunity to get these low spreads, I think you take them with Denver. Even if every now and then a team like Minnesota could upset them or keep it close or anything like that, I do think more often than not the Nuggets are going to cover a spread like this. And not to go on a whole rant monologue here, that is the whole point of sports betting, right? It's a long-term thing. So yes, this has a strong chance of being a final play. It could be a trap. This is certainly the type of game in which Minnesota could, surprise people. Denver hasn't got a loss yet, right? But if we take Denver -3 against anyone in the league for the rest of the year, I'm pretty sure we're going to be profitable. They are that good of a team. So when you have the opportunity, when you have that line, I do think there's some value in taking it. Now, the total is sitting at 222.5 as of right now. I think this one pushes that boundary. Denver hasn't looked like, the slow, sluggish team that they've been in the past. They haven't looked crazy in terms of their pace, but they're allowing teams to score 100 plus. And if they've been allowing, teams like, I guess you could say, Memphis or Utah to go for 104 and 102, I think Minnesota can go out there and probably drop near 110 on them. Minnesota scored 113 against Atlanta in a losing fashion just a couple of nights back. I see something similar happening here. So give me the over 225 ever so slightly slightly as well. If you guys have been watching for a few years now, you know that I hate Denver overs, but I do think this is a good spot for it, being down there 225. Dallas taking on Chicago. I feel very strongly about this one. If this is a healthy Dallas team now, Kyrie Irving, game time decision as of right now, whether or not he's going to play or not. But even if he doesn't play, you know, you have the same similar situation on the other side of things. Zach LaVine is a game time decision. But even if Kyrie Irving doesn't play, I do still think there's a strong chance it's the final play based on if we get a new line. Maybe they're, -3 instead of -5. But I think that -5 is a great spot for them. I think the Mavericks at home here crush the Bulls. The Bulls 2-2 on the year. Mavericks 3-0. Also 2-1 against the spread. But at home here, they're looking for their first against the spread win. I think they get it today. This Bulls team hasn't looked all that great. They've gotten a win against Toronto and Indiana. I'm not really putting my feather in those caps. They get crushed by OKC. They get crushed by Detroit. I think this Dallas team goes out there and does something very similar. Now, the one thing I'll say about Dallas, I don't think they've been battle tested, right? This could be a fake good team. San Antonio, Brooklyn, and Memphis has been their schedule to date. So I'm sitting here telling you guys, I think Dallas is going to crush the Bulls. I could even put 2 units on this game. I really like the Dallas spot, especially if Kyrie Irving plays. But, and there's always a but, San Antonio, Brooklyn, and Memphis, not the best of teams, but I do think Chicago's kind of in the same boat as that San Antonio and Memphis sort of spot. So hopefully we see a similar story there, because I like Dallas by a lot today. Total sitting at 225.5. Don't have that much of a strong take on the total. If I had a gun to my head, I'd lean towards the over, because I'm rooting for a Dallas sort of, great game. So if they could score 120 plus and Chicago just has to put up 120, I'll take it. All right, Memphis travels to Utah here. This is a tough one because Memphis is kind of surprisingly 0-4. They've played a few games that they could have won. I would say Washington, definitely a game which they could have won. They end up losing by 7. And Utah sitting here with only 1 win on the season, 1-3. So as weird as it is, I think these two teams have better names than they've been playing, but I think Memphis looks for their first win today. At the very least, they're getting +3 points. I think this could be a very close game, so I'll go ahead and lean towards Memphis in this one. I also like the over. We haven't even seen that Memphis defense sort of shine yet, right? 110 plus allowed in 3 of their 4, the lowest amount of points they've let up this year, 108. This is supposed to be a very defensive team, but maybe without Steven Adams, that looks a little bit different. Maybe without Brandon Clark, it looks a little bit different. No Derrick Rose tonight for Memphis, but I don't think that talks me off of it. Give me Memphis plus the points here, as well as the over. We've seen Utah obviously not play that much defense on the season, and I think Memphis is kind of right alongside of them, which is kind of weird because you think of Memphis as a defensive-oriented team. Marcus Smart at the helm now too. Just hadn't really worked out for them. Same thing with Jaren Jackson, right? Like, this is a defensive team that hasn't been playing the best of defense. I think Utah pushes the pace here. We see a high-scoring game in which Memphis keeps close. Give me Memphis +3 and the over. All right, Golden State taking on Sacramento. Klay Thompson probable in this one, but De'Aaron Fox out. So I would have obviously liked Sacramento +7.5 if Fox was in. We weren't going to get that line. They played just a few days back and were only 3.5 point. I think they're 3.5 point favorites, if my memory serves me correctly, right? But Golden State ends up winning that game 122-114, and they're healthy. I think that this is a good spot. Davion Mitchell starting at point guard isn't that much of like a defensive downgrade, but I do think you lose a lot of offense going from obviously De'Aaron Fox to him. So give me Golden State here, but 7 points, little bit too much for me to make a final play. I'd much rather consider this taking the under in this spot. I could see Golden State kind of getting off to a big lead and sort of just keeping that lead going. And 237.5 is obviously a 234.5, excuse me, is obviously a very high total here. I could see this one being like a I don't know, I'd say a 115 to 106 type of a game, which would be well below that mark. All right, Lakers taking on the Clippers here. I think there's a chance James Harden may be playing. Russell Westbrook, I'm not all that sure about, but I do believe there's a chance James Harden is playing. Obviously didn't play yesterday with the new trade, but I do think that there's a chance that he gets the run tonight. So keep an eye on the injury report for this game. I think that it's going to obviously matter a decent amount here. But if he doesn't play or he plays, either way, I'm actually going to look at the Lakers in this spot. Yes, that could even be considered a psycho alert type of a game, but I think that this is just such a letdown down spot for the Clippers after the trade, just like yesterday. And yes, they end up getting the win yesterday, so I understand that. But Orlando was winning for the majority of that game, and then they kind of pull away with it once they started to focus up. This is a big prime, or LA type prime time game between these two teams. I think that this is a spot in which the Lakers kind of catch them when everyone and their grandmother thinks the Clippers are going to be so good now because of the trade, and they probably will. But let's not forget that LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on the other side of the ball here. And if there's games that LeBron James gets up for now in the big age, or the high ages of his career, it is these big games. So and games that feel like they're big. So give me the Lakers here minus the 5 points. Total sitting at 225. I'll also take the over in this one. I don't think that the Lakers beat them by playing defensive, and we've seen this Clippers team sort of score at will here. 123, 118, 123, 118. So if they follow that trend, bouncing back and forth between those two scores, they're due for 123 tonight. And the Lakers, we saw they let up like 130 to Sacramento, 120 to Denver. Like, this is a team that can let up a bunch of points. I'm just hoping that they can go out there and score a bunch of points too, and dust this Clippers team. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Again, a rough last few days. If you're still rocking with me, go ahead and comment 26 as we hit the 26 mark here. Happy November to everyone out there. It's also my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom, if you're watching this. Yeah, guys, nonetheless, we got to be a little bit better. We got to be more conservative. Last night, we had a bunch of plays. We ended up going 2 and 3, not all that terrible, but we were kind of all over the map. I want to hone in, and I would say this next week is really where, we have enough data. There's a fine little sweet spot here. We have enough data to start running some numbers, but the books are still a little bit behind on what's happening. So I'm very, very excited for this next week. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you in today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.